Mark Szymanski back on the WP Minute.
Matt Medeiros, this is always a pleasure, man. I feel like I'm saying that all the time.
MJS in the room, there's always some excitement, right? When this guy shows up, you know there's some turmoil, at least in his head, that we're gonna try to figure out. Big topic is something that sort of hit the Twitter sphere. I did a video on it. Let me pull up the old screen. I said, is this the future of WordPress? And it's custom. Oh, let me pull up Daniel's tweet. That's what I meant to do. Pull up Daniel's tweet. Is this the future of WordPress? This is something that the WordPress.com showed off. The WordPress.com team showed off. It's called Create Content Model. I demoed it. I showed it on the channel, and I was like, I can get behind this. Custom fields, custom post types in the block editor. Debatable if that's the canvas we need to use. And I was like, this is great for a person like me, doesn't want to do like heavy development stuff, doesn't want a big page builder around it. I was like, I can get behind this simplicity of custom fields and dynamic data. Before we start dissecting like the controversy around this, what was your original reaction when you saw the way it worked as somebody who's heavily, invested in, let's say, bricks and also a former Elementor user?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was Kevin. There was a lot of engagement on this, and we'll get into all that sort of thing. But like on the surface, when I saw it, I think it was yesterday, right? Or it was very recently.
Yep.
I want WordPress to succeed. I want it to continue to progress, and we talk about this stuff all the time. I don't use Gutenberg as much as other people. Like I'm in the bricks world still, page builder world and everything, so I'm like not super tied to the block editor, and don't use it again as much as other people do with the block systems and everything. But I saw this and I was like, this is amazing, because I really appreciate, like, it's not the core team, I guess it's WordPress.com, but the people that are like changing the aspects of like actual, what we would kind of call core WordPress, really appreciate this. It seemed awesome. I will say that my initial reaction, I think, again, I replied to Twitter, on X, I think I replied to Kevin's repost of it or something. I was like, I mean, it's amazing that we're moving forward on this. I love that. I really love that. It's a little bit of the UX, right? Like I watched your video of it. I watched, I think it was Brian Cords, right, in this video, in the tweet, like kind of go through it. I'm not like completely sold on the way that it was implemented, but I totally get that it was like the first crack at it. I'm not casting any stones there. So at 100%, wanted to see it evolve. So that was kind of like my overall take on it. Really love the direction and the concept. The UI and UX of it could be a little different. We could have a separate discussion about that, but that has kind of slightly gone by the wayside, so to speak, with some of the new things that have come out today. So, but I mean, obviously you made the video on it, but what were your thoughts too?
I mean, this sort of goes back to why I don't get as animated about like Gutenberg or the site editor or like the whole concept of where we're headed, because I do think it's this lifelong debate that we've always had. Like that kind of interface, as challenging as it can be for somebody who is used to Elementor, bricks, or just a power developer, and you look at it and you're like, oh, this doesn't have all the features. This doesn't have all the things I need. I don't mind it as an end user, because for the most part, it's giving me 80 to 85% of what I need to make a website with a given theme. Right? I'm not selling websites anymore. I'm not consulting on websites anymore. And if I were, I wouldn't use, let's say, 2024 and the sort of base site editor tools that a core WordPress gives me. But as an enthusiast, I'm like, I like it. I like what I got here. I'm not overly like annoyed by it. And when I saw this was like the closest thing that said simplicity plus power at the same time. Design what my custom post type is going to look like, and then assign these little blocks as my dynamic fields. And I was like, hell yeah, this is great. From the enthusiast, maybe even power level user that I am these days. And I liked it. But I can also understand that it's not for everybody, but that's the biggest challenge with WordPress is it's trying to be for everybody, but also not for everybody at the same time. From the entry level point, I was like, yep, I'm sold. I like it. And I had originally we were going back and forth in our Slack DMs, and originally, like when you were saying, "Hey, this thing isn't coming to this is this is not going to come to WordPress," and my initial reaction to that was, "Well, too late. It's already out there, and the concept is out there." And in this world of open source, I'm thinking positively, going, "Well, the concept's out there now." Even if WordPress.com said, "You know what, we're not going to build this anymore," I was like, "Well, the concept's out there. People are seeing it. They're experiencing it. They're reacting to it. It's a very popular video on my channel." Daniel's tweet has 21,000 views, a lot of engagement. It made it sound like things were coming. But we started to get some information behind the scenes that it's not coming. And I said something like, but it's out there now. Like this is an influential thing. Look how excited people are for this concept. How do we not unsee this? You know? And if we can't unsee it, that's weird, because if a lot of people are liking it, why wouldn't we use this or some iteration of it, right? And that might be a challenging part. But yeah, Daniel's tweet sort of promoting this, it has caused some confusion for sure, because you see it, you're amped up, I'm amped up, and then sort of a rug pull at the end of the day.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, so I want to address one thing, and then we can dive into that. The one thing I would say is that I still don't have clarity, maybe some people do, on what actually, because this is part of my tweet in there, like the second point when I was talking about like the UX, like I and you and a lot of people that watch like our content and are in this all the time, we are absolutely one audience. This is not a new conversation. We're one audience. Even if we don't like, even the people that don't like the Gutenberg editor, for instance, and that whole experience, most of them are in the weeds of WordPress to a certain degree. Even if they use a page builder, they could figure it out if they really wanted to, right? But there's this other sect of users that are like DIYers that we talk about a lot, right? I actually want the information, and I don't know if it's possible, like to know if like when we say, hey, this is a good simple way, but gives them power. Like, would other people understand like how to use it? Like, maybe I just don't know enough about UX, like the methodology and of like good UX. 'Cause I feel like I do, but I look at it and I'm just like, I'm confused. But I would love to see like 50 DIYers at like a WordCamp or something try to figure this out and like know if they were going to do it. It's a separate conversation. But that would be my thought process going back to it, because I don't know if we can speculate that a layperson can figure these things out. Like, cause I don't know. That's just a separate thing. Going back to it, I think that,
but you should also preface it with, this was built in like 2 weeks as like a prototype. So it certainly was far from like a polished, it was far from a polished product.
For sure. 100%. I know would have. I don't even know how to speak on this though, because like I'm saying, like I know it would have continued to evolve, or it will continue to evolve. But let's table that and let's come back to what we're talking about here, because we don't actually know technically right now the future. There's a lot of different information out there. At the top of this, what happened was like Daniel, who is, correct me on his role, is he the head of WordPress.com?
Yeah.
Okay. So like there's WordPress.com, WordPress.org, and I've heard in the past that sometimes things go. You would think they flow the other way from .org to .com, but actually it's the other way sometimes. I think Brian Cords has mentioned that. I think did he mention that in your most recent one, the Book of Knowledge video? I feel like I heard it in there.
Yeah.
But so that's interesting, right? It's going from the commercialized thing down to the the open source platform for everybody to use. That's awesome. I love seeing that. And in this case, like it's a really cool idea that they have tried to do this. And again, everyone was. I mean, this is the most engagement I've seen on a feature in a while. Like it was unbelievable. Like because this is like Matty Eastwood, me, and Brendan O'Connell used to have. We still do, but it's a little on hiatus. This bridge builders concept, right? Of like bringing people together. This is one of those concepts that does exactly that, because you have like power users, you have lay people. And again, I'm not, no disrespect when I say these types of things, but like I'm saying, you have different types of audiences and they can all come together and they can be like, hey, you know what? Gutenberg's not my favorite thing, but this is awesome that they're actually putting this in there, regardless of what you think of the implementation, the UX and all that. It's awesome that it's happening, right? And that was kind of in that camp. So then it goes wildfire. Like it's on X. We looked at the stats, right? It's got like 20,000 views. It's got almost 50 reposts, ton of likes and everything like that. I think Brian yourself made a video. I don't know if Brian made. Well, he was in
He's
that
doing a
original
live
video.
stream. I think
He's doing a
Brian's
live stream
today. Or he
Exactly.
already did.
I'm interested to see that. And then, it went. If you're in all these different circles, I know you're not a big Facebook guy, right? But if you're in all the different circles, like it's in every Facebook group, it's in every private community. Like it was that big of a thing. People were sharing it like wildfire, like I said. And it's just funny now because now we've gotten some information and they're like, you know what? That actually is kind of more of just like a prototype, feel it out type thing. We have no plans whatsoever to actually bring this into .com or .org. And again, there's data views and I'm not like super educated on that whole situation yet, but it's just a very interesting way because again, we love the thing. It's gotten a lot of attention, but then we get that kind of news there that it's not, there's no real plans or anything like that. It almost not only it's like we're not sure where to go. It's like we didn't even really want it to go anywhere, but it was out there. Last point I'll make on this, and I'll kick it back over to you, is all of that is well and good. You guys like do whatever you want. All I'm saying is when you have a situation like we do in WordPress where we definitely have some kind of like factions going on here and you put something out like this, and again, I want to preface, I don't think anybody did anything intentional. There's no malintent. I'm just observing. You can't even lead, like even unintentionally leading people on is going to end up backfiring. In the language in the tweets, in the GitHub repo and everything like that, it makes it seem like this is next. Like they're asking questions like, is this the future? WordPress.com reposts it and like with eyeballs, like, oh, look what's coming. Like you can't do that if you didn't have plans to move forward with that. That is just going to piss people off when they were completely with you. It's just mind numbing that this was a decision that was kind of made. Again, I don't think it was intentional. I'm just saying like, I feel like this is these types of weird, like slight missteps, maybe we could call them, are like just this is the stuff that's like, how does this, like what happened here is really, I'm just looking for answers. Maybe you have some answers, Matt, you tell me.
Yeah, I mean, few things. So Daniel Bachhuber, who heads WordPress.com now, is one of the most intelligent WordPress developers I've ever known. Years and years and years ago, when I was way ahead of my skis on a project that I was working on in my agency, I knew him from his early days in WordPress, and he was the first developer that I worked with where I was like, I need help. I have no idea how to fix this client's website. Just random, like we built some custom thing. This is like my early days. And he was like, I can fix it for you. It's $300 an hour. And I was just, at the time, I was like, oh my God, I don't even make that much money. But if you know the answer, I'm going to pay you. And I said yes, and he fixed it in like 15 minutes. He's like, you don't have to pay me the whole thing. And I was like, no, I'm going to pay you the whole thing because you fixed this problem for me. Super intelligent guy. Kudos to him for rising in the ranks of in the WordPress world as head of WordPress.com. Now, this project, like you said, is, at least on my channel, is doing phenomenally. Almost 2,100 views, 120 likes. And the likes is really what I'm looking at. 120 likes is a pretty intense ratio. A lot of people are liking this, right? Usually, if I put out something that people don't like, I get a lot of downvotes, and they're downvoting me because they don't like it. They don't like the WordPress thing that I launched. It comes in, in the last, 30-ish days or 60-ish days. The only other one to come close to that is when I talked about WordPress Studio. Actually, this goes back almost 4 months, back in April. WordPress Studio for local development on Mac has 230 likes. A lot of people like that app. And I look at those as metrics to say, literally, do you like this? And I know the sentiment of the WordPress world. They don't like the video. They like what they're seeing. That's the weird dichotomy I'm in as a WordPress content creator. I think the issue, because originally when I saw, I had a super busy morning, bunch of meetings. I actually missed the Media Core meeting because I had a bunch of Gravity Forms meetings. When I saw you messaging me and I saw a bunch of stuff online, originally I was thinking, oh, Mark's going to be upset because he's going to say, why is WordPress.com doing this? And in my head,
I didn't even make that connection at first, to be honest with you.
I
was just happy to see something. I was happy, honestly.
Yeah, in my head, I was thinking, well, this is just a splash, and even if it's like not them doing it, as I was just saying, I thought it would still represent what the future could look like. so I have no other label for this other than it's a fumble publicly because like I saw it and I was excited. You saw it, you were excited. All these other people see it, they're excited. It's a fumble. It's an unfortunate fumble because I thought it was leading down the right direction. This one stings. This one stings. Even though it was just a little 2-week experiment and we were just seeing some things, I was just excited. Even if it didn't end up in that sort of exact way that we were playing with it, because no software does 2 weeks into a demo, yeah. I was like, well, we got a direction. It's going to come. Just when? It could be 2 years, 3 years. I don't know. But this looks like a direction I could get behind. So certainly a fumble and an unfortunate one from the .com side of things.
Well, there's two things that I'm seeing here. One, if we take a step back, we kind of like we look at the situation, but we take a different approach to it. We could say, all right, maybe it was like more of a situation where the .com team, incredibly talented people. Okay, none of anything I say here is really to criticize anyone. I'm again trying to observe. We could say that they were really just extremely excited that they put this together in 2 weeks and they just wanted to get it out there. Daniel puts a tweet up there and he's like, hey, look at this stuff we just did. This is awesome, right? But the problem is, like, I don't know if this is the right way to describe this. We are outside the realm of like playing around at this point with WordPress. Like people utilize this thing so heavily and professionally, especially in an area like this, right? This is like if you post something that is impactful like this, people are going to take this to every corner of the WordPress community on the internet, and they're going to they're going to shout it from the rooftops. I mean, I literally had people not necessarily DMing me, but in these different communities, like so excited because of all the recent stuff that has happened and all the announcements that have been made, like Etch and all this other stuff. Like they're like, oh man, WordPress is like, they're taking it. Like they're understanding. They're like, it's a race now. Like I literally had people say that, and I'm like, it's awesome. I love it. I love more competition. Not even competition, but I just love more people trying to do cool stuff, right? And then a day later, we get like and again, this is the second thing. Maybe they didn't have plans for it. They were just kind of like testing the waters out. And now it's like, oh, everybody loved it. Okay, now we'll do it. I haven't heard that yet, but that could be the next thing. But the fact that like we're gonna release something like this, we're not even gonna pose it as a question. We're gonna pose it as like a marketing, like, hey, this is next. And then to kind of like backpedal a little bit, maybe fumble it slightly. Like that is just how you like completely confuse the shit out of your user base. And then like how are we supposed to? You know what I mean? That's just kind of the vibe that I get. And the last thing is like coming from .com, I know like probably not a lot of like lay people, again, so to speak, follow .com, but I would feel like if you had to like guess, and maybe I'm wrong here, my hypothesis would be who's going to follow .com versus .org. I feel like .com is more of like end users potentially like going to .com and doing that type of thing. I don't necessarily know exactly. I'm speculating. But if you were going to post something on .com, don't you think like a layperson would be like potentially see that and be excited about it as well? So now you're not only confusing the people that are actually like potentially building, adding to it, and in depth with it, but they're also confusing the people that could just be using like a WordPress.com install, like on one of the plans. I just didn't get it. And again, I'm not trying to criticize people. I think it speaks to a broader thing. If we zoom out and we don't just think about this one thing, like this type of, like, oh, we should do this, then this, then this. It's just, I just feel like that's kind of lacking there. And maybe that's the whole crux of open source and WordPress and all that in general. But I don't know. It's just kind of weird to me, especially because it was on the commercial side too, now that I think about it. So I'm really confused.
Yeah. I mean, go back. People listening to this or watching this, go and I'll link it up in the show notes. I did an hour plus video with Brian Cords, who coincidentally also voiceovered the video for this announcement with air quotes, and we talked about a lot of the challenges with understanding WordPress.com and WordPress.org. Again, if those lines were not so blurry. Maybe if we saw something like experimented in WordPress.com, we would probably just feel, oh, it just stays in WordPress.com. So maybe we weren't so like, oh, this is going to come to WordPress. Because again, That's how I saw it. Even if somebody said, "Well, why is .com building this and not, the core WordPress team or the core
totally
Gutenberg
secondary
team?"
issue though. At
Yeah,
this point.
I would say like, well, that's fine, and the thing exists, and now we see it, and they can contribute that code back. We did get word. I don't know if you want to get into it or not, but we did get word that that code is not going into core. It's not built for it, and it's really they're just going to bypass it. Again, I still struggle with that sentiment because humans have seen the way it works, and I mean you can be influenced to some degree, especially if you had such positive reaction. What makes this a little bit more challenging, and I wanted to pull up an old article that I wrote many years ago when we were in the there was the Calypso project. You ever heard that code name before?
I've heard of it. Did we just talk about this recently? I feel like I just saw it recently, actually.
So I think this is it. The Tug of War WordPress Experience Web Hosts and Us. So I have this. Let me pull it up for those who are watching. And if you're just listening, I'll link it up. It's an old post I wrote back in 2016, December 2016. And the Calypso project came out, and this was, from a 50,000-foot view, it was an app-like experience on WordPress.com, and also a local app that you could download. Oh wow, iPhone 7 is a screenshot in my post.
It still looks the exact same. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and here's a little screenshot again for those. Yeah, it does. And those who are reviewing, you can see this little screenshot here. It says, I'll just zoom into it. The new WordPress.com. You can download the desktop app. So I wrote this whole piece. You know how I am. I'm a futurist. I look at it and I go, oh, what does this mean for the future of WordPress? And in my opinion, I was thinking, what they'll do is build out this app that you download to your desktop and use natively to build your WordPress websites. And oh, by the way, wouldn't it be great if instead of building your WordPress website, you could, or building your WordPress website locally, you could then host it somewhere with the same frictionless experience. In other words, build your website on your app and then send it to any web host. And that web host would be WordPress.com and whatever partners they might have. I was looking at that as the future of building WordPress. I mean, we were all excited about apps back then. That died down. The Calypso project kind of vaporized, but now we have Studio. And what I look at, which makes this whole thing still confusing, is Daniel put out the tweet, oh, if you love the content model stuff, you're going to love WordPress.com roadmap, which he has the screenshot of his tweet. And he says, you might have also caught my tweet yesterday about the new Create Content Model prototype, which allows anyone to define the custom post types and fields natively in the block editor. Game-changing and incredible. We're two of the dozens of positive reactions. We hope that our prototype spurs productive conversations within the core community. And that's that last piece that I'm still stuck on, because we heard, no, this is even this prototype you shouldn't look at it. You should just move past it, which is very challenging, for me, in this world. But the point is I think WordPress.com is doing things outside of the norm of WordPress, which I think they have to. In order for WordPress.com and Automattic to survive, there has to be a different experience over there. And I'll say it again, and I do want to write a post about this or finish writing my post about it, but the reckoning is coming where there will be a different experience over there. Like this content model could be an experience you only get at .com. And I wouldn't have an issue with that because you could be influenced by it and somebody could build it in open source WordPress. But I wouldn't mind if .com had that kind of experience and said, yeah, you got to pay for that. I wouldn't mind, because that means, hey, that's a way for Automattic to survive. And it's not really undercutting us in any way. And I think these are the early days where we're starting to see maybe Studio and my whole thesis of an app-first experience and smoothing out the experience for end users is coming, and that best experience will be at .com.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple thoughts there. The layup one on that tweet specifically is if this was put out and there was no plans to actually make it happen, and it was literally just, hey, look what we can do, but we're not going to do, you have to say that. Like you absolutely have to say that somewhere. It's got to be like, this is just a prototype. We are not planning on releasing that. Like, I know that's a weird thing to write in a tweet, but like you have to absolutely say. I mean, again, I watched Brian's voiceover video again too. That was, it was in that tweet there, and it didn't make it sound like that. Again, I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm sure Brian didn't even write that script or whatever. Like that's has nothing. I'm not saying about individual people here. I'm saying at a 50,000 foot view, as WordPress, I feel like that is something that is just like as a consumer of the information, I was confused, and I'm in this. You're in this, right? Like imagine the other people is kind of the way that I look at this. So that's the first thing. The second thing, though, I mean, I don't know how deep we want to go into that part about the commercialized product versus the .org thing. I'm barely scratching the surface on kind of forming an opinion on that. I mean, if .com had the content model thing and that was like one of the benefits that you would get from using that and supporting Automattic, like I get that. I definitely want Automattic to continue to survive. I'm not sure if that's like off the top of my head one of the best ways for that to happen. Obviously, that's just the example here. But like I would probably, if I'm trying to use my logical mindset here, I'd probably like go look at other open source platforms and see how their situation goes, like even outside of it, again, like Linux or something like that. Like how do those companies, if they're any sort of a commercialized arm that is taking care of that, how do those things survive? Is it normally that the commercialized product gets a better product than here? Because here's the one thing, I think I sent you this video in DMs. There's a recent, like, if anybody's like outside of the WordPress space, like technical, like I think Linus Tech Tips just did it. I don't even watch him that often, but he had like a video on like Android open source, right? I'm an Android guy as opposed to you guys that are Apple. And it was like that, the core experience of that open source product or that open source project of Android is so terrible compared to like the Google flavor now, the Samsung flavor now, whatever else there is. And it's like, it's almost like it's not even a thing anymore because it's so much worse and it hasn't really been kept up with. So I don't know if any of that could happen with WordPress. I would just be concerned perhaps because that's another example that I feel is like somewhat similar. But that's a larger topic. I don't know if you have thoughts on that specifically, but that's where I would go with that would be my next question.
I do, but I just think that there's definitely the need to clear up the all the confusion in the air, especially for events like this, happenings like this that people just can't figure out and understand why it happened. And I think that the only way I always have to bring it back to the commercial side of Automattic because that's just largely in my head right now. They have, I don't think they're profitable. I have no idea, right? It's all speculation because they're a privately held company, but I don't think they're profitable compared to their, investments. And there's either going to be another round of funding if there hasn't already been, and we just don't know about it. I'd imagine there'd be another round of funding, and somebody at some point is going to say, get profitable, start building at scale, really start expanding this thing. And I don't know how they're going to do that with just hosting and just Jetpack, right? I think that Band-Aid needs to get ripped off where they can turn to people and say, whatever the number is, 45% of the modern web runs on open source WordPress. And we have which is massive opportunity. And then for them to say, over here, our WordPress is like 20% better. So if you want a better by like 20% experience, come over here. And I think most open source projects, Ubuntu, Android, maybe licensing and support, that kind of thing, is all like more support driven, which you could also say that's what hosting is. Yeah, it's hosting, but it's also support for WordPress. I don't know of any other open source project that has, the strict model of it being 20% better over there. I just feel like that's what they have to do, and they could do if they wanted, or slow trickle out features where, hey, in this release in WordPress 6.7, WordPress.com gets this, and then WordPress.org gets it at WordPress 6.8. And there's like a one cycle thing. I wouldn't care about that. I'd be like, cool, Automattic's building cool stuff like this example, and they're going to slow roll it out to us. So we'll get it in the next version. I would be totally cool with that. and I don't know of any other projects that do that. We were on a call. I think you and I were on a call last week, or a live stream last week, when they brought up Expression Engine, or I was definitely on a live stream. I thought you were with me. Expression Engine was tiny compared to WordPress, but that's an open source project, and they have the free version, and then you have the paid versions, which have cool stuff, cool features you're not going to get in the free version, and you have to pay for it. Yeah, okay. Expression Engine does it, but Expression Engine is tiny. It's cool. It's actually a pretty cool CMS, but tiny compared to the influence of WordPress. At the end of the day, though, the optics here are unfortunate. Ann McCarthy has been sending us some stuff on like different other avenues of like the data views, the native data views that are coming to WordPress, and like some of the other ideas that we've been talking about for getting custom post types and custom fields into WordPress. This is in our, just for clarity and transparency's sake. She's not sending it to just you and me. She's sending it to a bunch of YouTubers that meet up regularly. It's in the YouTube Slack group. It's not an actual channel. It's just a group DM. Mm-hmm. So for all intents and purposes, it's public. I won't read it like line for line, everything that she has been sending me, but she was trying to shed some light on it to say, look, this thing is not moving forward. Here are some other examples, and I haven't had a chance to dive into these. But I think this will be a particular challenge, like the way that she is communicating this to us, although I find it valuable, and I'm glad she is, even for us to be like, hey, check out like all these GitHub repos for you and I to like dive into. We're like, well, I don't have time yet to like sift through all this stuff, and I'd have to go and experiment it. Here's why I liked what the WordPress.com did, and here's maybe just a lesson for like WordPress development and features that are coming to WordPress. He gave us a button. I could click a button and test it out, right? Mm-hmm. He just set up the template in Playground or Blueprint. I forget what Playground calls it. But it was all there. It was all set up. Because sometimes I try to pull in the PRs in GitHub to Playground, and it fails. So I was just like, it gets frustrating. I'm like, I don't have time to like dig into this or open up a ticket. But that's what I want. Like, that's one good lesson out of this is you got a cool feature. You want me to try it. Give me the button to click, and I'll go click it and play with it. And that was exciting. That was good.
That was amazing. But it again kind of speaks to the fact that, coupled with the language in that GitHub repo, we did all this. That's awesome. Why is it not? Why was it not ever going to get released? Yeah. Like, I mean, it's a try button. Like, what? I mean, unless we have bad information, which I'm not saying we do. I mean, it's very confusing. Like, I just don't know what to make of it. It seems like an amazingly cool thing that seems extremely like forward thinking and like progressive to the WordPress CMS that everyone was unanimously kind of on. And I honestly hope that our conversation here ends up getting obsolete, and they do end up bringing this, like they decide, hey, maybe all these 20,000 views on this video signify that maybe we should actually put this into something and plan to have it this or some evolution of this into .com or .org or what have you, because I think it would be beneficial. I'm just confused, as I usually am. But to your main point, though, the button thing, if you guys aren't sure about that, like if you go to the tweet, you go to the GitHub repo, there's literally a button in the README file, just opens it up. So, I mean, that's 100% agree with you. If you want somebody to try something, you got to make it easy for them because, myself included, I don't live in GitHub. I mean, I know how to be dangerous, but like, if you just tell me like, hey, go here, try this thing out and let me know what you think, I could do that. That's definitely my speed.
Yeah, I have it pulled up on the screen again for those who are listening. Check out the video with Playground, and this is a Playground versus Studio is like a whole other topic in my head because Playground and Studio are, again, if I go back to my blog post from 2016, like that native app experience, being able to have a smoother, quicker experience natively on an app, I think will still outpace the using the web. for speed and a smoother UI. Like Playground and Studio, even those two compete with each other, in my opinion. It's like, which one do you want people to use? Do you want to use Studio from WordPress.com, which syncs up to a WordPress.com account? Or do you want to use Playground, which is still an automatician, still owned by Automattic, but with air quotes like the WordPress.org side of things? Even that is like, well, who's going to get these features? Right. Like you could run that the Canvas, whatever it's called, the content Canvas creator. It doesn't even matter anymore. We're not using it. That content model. You could use content model on Studios. So Daniel says in his blog post. So which one wins out? The Playground or Studio. So even those two compete, which is hilarious. But I think these are the future for like developing WordPress natively and then sending it off to wherever. And that's, again, going back to the commercial side, that's the stuff I'm really interested to watch is, can it go wherever? Like, will they allow you to hook up to any hosting account through Studio or Playground? Or is it just going to be .com? Again, I wouldn't care if it was just .com because I look at that as that's the revenue model they need. Or do they say, yeah, hook up to any web host, but by the way, we're going to advertise to you in Studio app all the stuff that we have at .com or Jetpack or WP Cloud, et cetera. That'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, definitely got to keep that in mind. I mean, we all have to keep in mind that we got to make money, but especially the tool that we're using here, we have to make sure that it generates revenue again. Either, there's a lot of different things going on the .org side kind of now too. Just from Automattic in general, again, I hope that that's a consideration. Oh, we got a live demo here. Look at this.
I mean, look how fast that was.
Look at this guy.
That's amazing, right? To just click a block, save a custom field, publish this, and then my custom post type is made. I add the new custom post type. Oops.
You better not spell my name wrong again.
I did that.
This guy.
I did that on purpose for all those WP Tonic viewers. Mark Zeminski, whatever he called you. And then we go to add new page. This is riveting for the podcast side of things, but I just want to get down to seeing this, and then you can come in and just pull in your custom field right there. It's just already saved in a block. And I can just pull in my custom fields and build out whatever, or I can throw a query loop in. I don't think I can have any control. I do have control of that. Maybe in the future I could have filtered this and said, show this custom field from, this custom post type. I mean, 2 weeks. That's what we built this amazing interface in 2 weeks, and we're not getting it. So yeah, it is super frustrating to not have this power.
Yeah. I'm the dynamic data guy. I love that. And I want to see that continue to grow. And I mean, obviously, if that was version 1 of it, hopefully it continues to evolve. We just don't know anything. But I don't know. I think that it's probably it would be a little different, than using a Bricks or something like that. Obviously, you got to get used to it and everything. But I don't know. I would love to see it continue to focus on those types of things. Again, I don't know what to say. I just really appreciated the fact that we had something here that was really brought people together, so to speak, for lack of a better way to say it. Everybody was on board with, and then the fact that we get just punched right in the gut after that. It's kind of weird. Just a little bit of weird miscommunication, I feel like. So I hope it finds its way. But the one other thing I'll say here is, because I've also heard, and I don't know if this is a sentiment, what I've interpreted is maybe another way is hey, this is what's possible. Because WordPress, again, I don't think people understand this, myself included. WordPress is kind of becoming this concept of a framework. Underneath the hood of this, there's amazing stuff happening that I'm only this much knowledgeable at, right? All of the REST API, the Fields API, which is that what this is? Leveraging to a degree? The Fields API?
I don't know if it's using which APIs it's using. I'm assuming it's using something in order to do this.
Regardless, people way smarter than me on the dev side are like doing awesome things to core. I totally understand that. The trouble is that like it's not progressing fast enough on the UX side, but you could leverage all of that. There's a lot of themes and things like that that I know are leveraging these types of tools, which is fantastic. The weird part though is like, again, when we see something like this, it's like, who is kind of making the decision as far as like what we should kind of put in there, what we shouldn't put in there. I know it's a bigger conversation, but it's just a weird spot for me to kind of see something that everybody would really appreciate. I didn't see one like real objection to the concept. So I'm not sure why that wouldn't be considered for .org, for .com, like whatever. It's just an interesting spot.
Yeah, they'll probably have to go and rework this GitHub page because, yeah, again, the optics say like want to move this concept forward. Feel free to open an issue in the repo and discuss your proposed improvements. Pull requests are welcome. We built this prototype and may invest in it in the future. May invest into it further based on the level of interest. I mean, the interest looks pretty high.
Yeah.
Our near-term vision is outlined on this roadmap issue here, and they have, they even had a little roadmap for it, which was great. But anyway,
I don't know. Maybe that's it then. Maybe it was like kind of like a feeler thing. The language around it was a little confusing. The follow-up news around it was more confusing. But hopefully, maybe it's like, hey, I mean, they're obviously within complete, ability to just be like, okay, yeah, I mean, you guys love this thing. We'll work on it. Like, I guess they could definitely do that, right? And I hope they do. So,
yeah,
it's just a little strange. I would hope that we'd be a little bit more clear on the stuff that we don't know if it's going to move forward, and just be like, hey guys, what do you think about this? Like, just say that rather than be like, we're doing this. It kind of came across as we're doing this, whether you like it or not. And then everyone did like it. And then we got the kind of the rollback thing. And then it was like, oh, okay. So yeah, it's just a little strange, but I don't know. Hopefully it all works itself out, I guess.
Our promise to you, dear listener and viewer, is that we will follow this story. We will ask to
the ends of the earth
to figure out what's going to happen. We will meet with shutting off, and every connection's coming back right now. Maybe, and we're back.
Yeah, you dropped for a second. You're good.
I don't know what that was about. Our promise to you is that we will follow the story and ask the questions to get the answers. And we'll follow this. We'll talk to folks at WordCamp US. We'll talk to Ann. We'll talk to the powers that be, hopefully, and get some answers. Because we want it. I want it. I like it.
I want the truth.
Yeah, I want the truth. Insert "you can't handle the truth" meme here. Yeah, anyway, good discussion. This is definitely, how do the kids say it? This is an L today.
I mean, we'll see. L today, maybe right now, but long term, hopefully it'll be a dub.
Yeah. Yeah, get that dub. MJS.bio. Mark, where else do you want folks to go?
That's it. All the links are there. If you guys are going to be at WCUS, I'd love to chat with you. Yeah, excited for it. My first one, so we'll see how it goes.
Fantastic. Everybody else at WPMinute.com, the WPMinute.com/subscribe. We will see you at